Now joining me is Mr. Van Connor. Hello, Van.
Hello, Babs. Sad day, but it's always nice to talk to you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So, The Exorcist, obviously you've seen it.
Oh, many times. Who hasn't seen The Exorcist? We all love The Exorcist.
Van, can I just stop you? We're on a WhatsApp and we can hear loads of music playing in your background, and we're not sure why. We're not sure what's going on.
It's not coming from me, I promise you. My neighbours aren't that bad.
Oh, it's just stopped. Just like that. So tell me, The Exorcist at the time, so audience, they didn't know what they were in for, did they?
No, they absolutely didn't. There were reports of like fainting and vomiting. There were protests about it because of the religious connotations of it. Even its own studio weren't terrifically happy with the movie, like going into it, because Friedkin had insisted on having like relative unknowns instead of big name stars.
Right.
But the only thing working in its favour was it kind of came right on the heels, like within 5 years of Rosemary's Baby. So it was kind of coasting on that pedigree. You had The Omen a couple of years after this, but it was part of that early new wave period of like iconic Hollywood horror.
And do you think that, people didn't know what they were in for, obviously, and they were in for quite a shock? Lots of people have got in touch with me today saying that, there were loads of messages on Twitter. We had a guy called Rob on earlier. He said not only does he think it's one of the best films ever made, never mind in the horror genre, just ever made.
He's not alone. He's not alone in that.
No.
There are a lot of people. I mean, several of my peers do firmly subscribe to the theory that The Exorcist is the greatest movie ever made. I mean, for me, it's still Terminator 2. But The Exorcist, it's a top 20. It's an all-timer for sure. I mean, you got to remember, it's the first horror movie that ever got nominated for the Best Picture Oscar.
Is that
ever.
right? I didn't know
and
that.
if you don't adjust for inflation either, it was the highest grossing horror movie until it in 2017. So until very recently, this was again unadjusted for inflation, the highest grossing horror movie. It's insane.
Wow, I did not know that. We've had some stories from listeners, and I didn't know if you knew this, Van. Obviously you do. You know everything about films, but I was just really shocked about this whole thing. And we had Paul from Kempston earlier, and he said the old Granada cinema, lovely old cinema over in Bedford, and he said there was a priest in the foyer on the way out, blessing people or maybe exorcising them or saying, "Are you okay?" and all this kind of carry on.
Yeah, that's part of the legend of this. This was absolutely the case in the early 70s when they released this. Like, it really drew furor. There were, back then, you used to have local councils. Before the BBFC kind of got in the way, you had local councils had to, to rate movies. Yeah. And there were several that just wouldn't release it at the time. It was really controversial largely because of the religious overtones of it. It's hard to believe that, as recently as 50 years ago, we were a lot more puritanical about this stuff in Britain. And The Exorcist really did catch that ire. I remember when DVD kind of first came into fashion around the sort of time of the millennium, releasing The Exorcist, what's now referred to as the version you've never seen, the infamous spider walk sequence, that was a really, really big deal because we actually got The Exorcist properly into cinemas. That was the very first time I saw it in cinemas, for instance. I was about 18, 19 at the time. And it was a huge, huge deal to finally get The Exorcist in a fully sanctified, all above board release. And that took nearly 30 years then as well. And we're still talking about, 20 years ago when this happened. Yeah,
and we're still talking about it now, today, with Friedkin dying. And I just wonder, is it the fascination with, what else is out there? Is it with the poltergeist and the priest and, what is the fascination with it?
I mean, for one thing, it's just a very, very good movie. I mean, Friedkin was a great director. I mean, he himself may not admit that. I mean, wouldn't have admitted that, sorry, because he was a very outspoken but also very modest guy. And it's worth noting, as great as The Exorcist was, I still don't even think The Exorcist is in, his top 3 movies. The man made The French Connection, for God's sake.
Yes.
The man made amazing. The man made Cruising. The man made awesome movies. But it's just a really solid, but also at the same time, engaging drama, but genuinely terrifying film with really terrific performances. Max von Sydow, great. Linda Blair, great. Ellen Burstyn, great. They're all, Jason Miller, they're all wonderful in this movie. But the iconography of it is so timeless that we still see parodies of this done today.
Oh,
I mean,
God,
I yeah. Still my favourite gag from Scary Movie 2 is James Woods doing the Exorcist at the very beginning. You
French
can't
and
beat it.
Saunders have done a parody of it. You know, lots of people saw that and then weren't frightened anymore. And look, I mean, I could wang on about this film for ages with you, and I love talking to you, Van. Have you got, just before you go, for people that love films, talking about films, Van is your man. Have you got any film nights coming up?
Oh, we have. In fact, I think it's a week on Friday. And I'm hoping you're going to come to this because this is right up your alley. You've got to throw your fishnets on and come down to our dress-up, quote-along, sing-along screening of Rocky Horror. Because week on Friday at the Crooked Crowbar in Leighton, we're doing the full 50th anniversary of Rocky Horror. So it's 50 years for The Exorcist this year. It's also 50 years for the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So get on down, have a boogie. We're doing a disco afterwards and everything, Babs. You're going to love it.
Damn it, Janet. I want to come. What time on Friday and where can people find out more?
You can find more at thecrookedcrowbar.com, and it's going to be 8 p.m. next Friday on the 18th. You can see me on stage in full Van and Furter mode, doing the intro as usual.
Brilliant, Van. Thank you very much for your time. Always lovely to speak to you. Thanks, Van.